p.m. And first order of business is to approve the minutes. So does anybody have any changes to it, or does anybody want to say yes to approving the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Yep, second. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yes. No, in front of the.
Oh, no. Those are for the Industrial Development Board. Yeah, they're meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
Sorry.
She's very prepared for that.
Yeah.
All those in favor? Hey, okay, we got that. So the second order is, I think most of you know this, but just as a reminder, we're changing the meeting going forward. And we will be extending it until 8:30 p.m. And that will become the regular meeting that we have with Simone Collins. And as you can see up on the screen, that's the Master Park Study timeline. So if any of you have any changes that you want to make to it, if not, we will consider this final, and this is what we would be operating off of going forward. No changes?
No changes.
Perfect. Okay. So the next order is to look at the lists of the potential stakeholders and individual interviews that we would recommend. What we're being asked to do is come up with that list and give it to Simone Collins. If they have any issues or questions about it, they would certainly let us know about that. Thank you to Michael and Jean. I think you put together a really good first look at what those should look like. But this is just to get the conversation started. And if anyone has other ideas of who they think should be included, or what groups we need to be sure to include, it's important that we talk about that now. So I don't know how we want to go about this. Alan, did you have a time to look at it? Do you have any thoughts about it as the staff person?
No, I took a look at everything that Michael had put forward, and thank you, Michael, for doing all this. I think the list is pretty comprehensive. I don't think I have any suggestions or additions at this time.
So, doesn't look like I can't see too well, but it doesn't look like there's many people there in terms of being able to have a discussion outside of what's already on this. I forwarded the email from Anita. The key person interviews should be 1 to 3 people within the community that can share valuable and practical historical information. So some of the suggestions they included were any neighborhood associations, the business leaders, which I think is on our list. She mentioned Thomas Wynn Apartments. Now that's interesting. Do we have, I can't remember if on this list we have any I don't know if Thomas Wynn is considered part of Narberth or not. I can't imagine it is. It's in Wynwood. Do we have any? We do have apartment management, I see.
I think the reason they had mentioned Thomas Wynn was because of that crossing on Wynwood Avenue. It's a bit dangerous as it exists. So they were talking about possibly like a landing on the other side, and it's a private property, so they could be a potential property.
That makes good sense. Yeah.
The flashing lights.
Yes.
Yeah, people walk out there and I hate to see them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And as I was walking here, it did occur to me that maybe we should also consider all of the neighbors who live on Windsor Avenue, just because that's facing Narberth Park.
I think
Is there
that's a-
any,
That's a good.
is there any neighborhood association for that group? I mean, for that area, do you know, or, and I'm not sure.
I don't think we're there.
Yeah, there is one for Norbrook, but
Right.
I don't know if there's one for Windsor Avenue.
Might want to include Conway too. I mean, at least the 100 block of Conway, because they kind of impacted the most, in addition to the ones that folks on Windsor. You know, at least put the word out to that group to see if they want to collectively meet, or they might have a spokesperson to, you know, represent their interests. I think that would be very important.
I wonder too whether we are going to also have the questionnaire, the written survey. And we could certainly get input. We could make sure that the neighbors in the close area of these are included in that survey. So we'll have their input through that as well. I'm just wondering how hard it would be if we don't know, there's no logical group or person to talk to from Windsor or Conway to include in this, if I'm understanding it correctly. So that might be a little difficult to figure out who among them we should reach out to ask if they want to be included, right? I mean, unless somebody has an idea of how to do that.
At least on Windsor, there's the former mayor and former council member Nancy Lotz, I think, as well. So they might at least have some insight to the neighborhood and also a little bit of the history.
This could bring about the creation of community groups. We're getting into block party season, and people like to
That's
get
right.
together. And if there isn't a block or a neighborhood association, maybe there's one like the grain of sand in an oyster around which a pearl can coalesce. And you might find that you created senses of community in various neighborhoods that had nothing to group themselves around in the past. And now they do. Could be a really good thing.
Yeah. So why don't we put down those two folks as potential to run by Simone Collins too, and see how they figure it should go.
Or another possibility also is just to make sure that we kind of individually distribute the survey to all of the neighbors on that street.
Oh yeah.
That's kind of what I was thinking as well, is like, if we have defined areas, we can drop literature at every house. Like, it would obviously be a much bigger burden for us to try to do that everywhere in the borough, but if we had really specific focus areas, that would be pretty easy for us or me, one other person, to just kind of like hit, and then focus in like that kind of like high impact zone or whatever
The
it is.
catchment, right.
We could do a certain like buffer around like like say it's here, we do like a 200-foot radius. Similar to like a zoning notice, you know how we do like 500 feet for a zoning notice? Maybe, well, 500 feet's significant, maybe scale it down to like 250 or something, just to try and capture like the whole vicinity around each of the properties. I think that would work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Elmwood property. There's
Right.
limited number of individuals there that are directly impacted, but I think it would be worthwhile to have that neighborhood or those few houses understand what is being considered and what their thoughts would be.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Elmwood property, I know there's a lot of crossover between that property and Shortridge, so that's another possible group that might be interested in what happens there.
And we can also make sure not only with the written survey, but the public meetings, that we be sure to make sure that they know about them and can come as well. So we can talk to Simone Collins about what they think would be the best direction whether we try to engage individuals or whether or do both or include that 200 foot radius around the parks, and make sure that they have access to the written survey.
I'm not sure if my wife, but would Narberth AA would they have any interest in
Oh, they're
talking
in
to them?
there.
They're in there?
They're in there as the institutional park users.
Okay.
And Eric and I count in that.
Yeah.
What?
With the best.
Eric and I count in one of the interviews.
Yes,
So
You're
we're
under-
two open.
for technical review and comments.
Well, not a review, for they want to sit down with me and Eric, so I don't know if we account for, the 12 or.
You should be definitely part of the key people, yeah. Obviously, we want Jeff to be one of the main people because his department manages the park, so.
Yeah, we weren't sure if they're listing that as a key person interview.
That's
or
what I
if
was
that's-
thinking, if they would
Yeah.
just kind of.
Did yesterday
talk
they
to-
say that you would be a key person here? You would,
So they
yeah.
wanted to sit down with Eric and I,
Yeah.
Eric, the MS4, stuff. And myself, just because we know the park, we know how it gets used, we know all the events, we know where peak seasons, peak interests, so.
Yeah, so we could do one meeting for you and Eric together. I think that'd be good.
That's the super key person interview.
Thank you.
By the way, I'm so grateful we have that institutional knowledge here, and that's gonna be like so valuable for this whole park planning process.
It's gonna be good, we're anxious to kick this off.
Would that interview, I mean, it may be very separate, but they also talked about talking to the police, like the safety officers or whatever. Would they also be part of your group, or are we seeing that as a separate key stakeholder interview?
I'm thinking maybe we have like a borough staff meeting, so they come and talk to John,
Yeah.
Jeff, and like myself and Matt. I think we could do all that in one meeting.
Okay, I think that makes good sense too, because you can also work off of each other in terms of your responses.
Fire department.
And sure, fire department as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is the 4th of July committee still a thing? It was disbanded briefly for like a year
Oh,
or
we
two,
have
right?
one.
That's what I thought,
Yeah.
but
Um,
would it be in here?
So that's in the institutional park users
Yeah.
group?
Can you put that back up on the screen? I guess I can. Wait, I can do it. Sorry. So,
You should be able to share it now.
oh no, I'm sorry. Talking to myself a little bit. You all have it in front of you. I was looking at my own copy. So I want to make sure, looking at the list that Michael and Jean provided. So we have the Green Initiative, we have the Narberth Histories. That are we talking? I looked that up. Friends of Narberth History. Is that that's George's group, right? George.
It is. So there might be some overlap there with some other entities on this list where we could think about maybe consolidating some of those, and then we
Yeah.
free up additional slots here. And that
I
might be the
wondered
case.
that.
Other groups on here may have some overlap where we could consolidate them into one meeting rather than two separate meetings.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. Well, even like the Friends of Narberth Green Initiatives, would that also include like there's a tree planting association, right? I think Sally from our group is on that. So I wondered if they would if we could get, like almost like the horticultural or get a few of those different like 2 or 3 of those folks together for one of these interviews. Yeah, the co-op garden, the Green Initiative, and even the folks that do like and the Tree Planting Commission. That's what it is.
Green initiatives is more funding than anything else. They don't do
I'm sorry.
they do, it's more of a funding source than anything else.
What one is?
The Friends of Narberth Green Initiative,
Is that the Fonji? Yeah, but and I think we need to include them, absolutely. But so you think that has to be a separate interview on their own?
Oh, I'm not saying that they should be separate, but I do think it's a little bit different than the Shade Tree Commission.
My understanding is that most of these interviews will be virtual. Is that right?
I think that's correct, yeah.
So we want.
Yeah, I would think so.
You know, it'd be good to know, you know, who they're wanting to speak to, and maybe you can arrange for them to come to the borough and kind of have, you know, that 1 o'clock meeting, 2 o'clock meeting, so that it might work a little smoother that way, rather than them trying to set it up individually with groups of people. That's just a thought, because you know, otherwise it looks like we've got 12 key people, key organizations to, you know, if you're trying to set up 12 separate interviews at different times, I think that would be pretty cumbersome. Just a thought, given our time frame, you know, if there's some way, you know, if they would like us to coordinate, you know, a meeting, you know, on May 15, we'd like to interview 3 different groups or individuals from those groups of some sort, and set up some time frame. What are they looking for in terms of time? An hour, 45 minutes, and kind of set those time frames up, or maybe have everybody in those 3 groups, you know, together at the time. I'm just, you know, our timeline is not expansive, and so if they want to get the interviews in, especially as we'll be approaching summertime and all that, it might be worthwhile to figure out a way to organize how they can do those interviews.
I think that's going to be up to Simone Collins. I mean, they're going to coordinate all these meetings, and obviously they're going to take the preferences of the group into account. So if one group feels comfortable doing it more in person versus virtual, like they'll accommodate, I'm sure. And they have like 3 months to do all these key person stakeholder meetings. So I think they can probably work it out themselves. I mean, it's not for like us to figure out, like they're going to do all that work for us. So
we're paying them for.
yeah.
And plus, it might be very hard, actually. I was thinking it's even harder to have one day and have one after the other, because you have to have all of those people and all of those organizations free on that day at the time slots that they would be given. And sometimes that's very difficult, but we can leave that to Simone Collins to figure out the best way to do that. One of the groups that they mentioned, Anita mentioned in the email that they sent, was if there's any, and it might is Horizon. I don't know what New Horizons is. Is there an organization that might have the older Narberth voice that can be included in some of these in one of these discussions?
That's what New Horizons is.
Yeah.
So that is New Horizons. Yeah, I didn't. I had no idea what it was.
They're actually here at the Borough Building on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Fridays.
Wow.
Yep. They're here from 9 to 2.
Dang.
Yep.
We can fit them in then.
Used to be all week,
All week.
Monday through Friday.
Wow.
And I think the attendance for their events is picking up, so They would be a good group to talk to, maybe for like doing maybe some outdoor recreational stuff with, you know, with their group, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When down in the list of group stakeholders, so we have the skate park users up as a key person, and then we have the institutional park users. So we still because the skate park is still a beta test. Is that why they're held separate, like a separate discussion with them versus including them in part of the institutional park users?
Well, I think the institutional park users are the scheduled park users, so they take up the park in a very specific season or time, whereas the skate park users it's more informal and they're using that space informally.
Okay.
But, I mean, I think, so at the site tour yesterday, we talked about the skate park and the future of that and what that might look like if we were to revise it some way. So I think that is an important thing to figure out and talk to.
Yeah.
That.
Oh yeah, I think it's very important. I just wasn't sure having that as a key person versus a group, but that makes perfect sense. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is there anything that's not on the list for key person meetings that should be up there that we have not included? Other than the what we talked about with the neighborhoods across the street and such. No?
Maybe Alan can answer this. Does the Montgomery County Planning Commission have any, should they have any involvement in this process? No?
I mean, probably. I mean, I'll probably talk to Tim Stoddard, the planner, and see if he needs to be involved at all. I mean, maybe involved in like a comprehensive approach of the county. Like you can say like, because they have their own like comprehensive plan for the whole county, and you can see how that ties into like our local plan here. I'll probably just hook him up with Simone Collins. They can chat and see how he can help out.
Yeah, and I had included them as like the technical review and comment. They wouldn't be providing technical comments,
Yeah.
but like the way I thought of it was like on planning commission, when planning commission's discussing something, you know, MCPC will receive that and then provide kind of like a report of things to consider, you know, before finalization.
That makes sense, yeah.
But it may be that Tim has wants to be kind of inserted earlier in the process or whatever it may be. So I think it'll be good to check up and see.
They have scope of responsibility.
Yes.
This may be outside the scope of the responsibility that they've signed up for.
The county?
Yeah, MCPC.
You'll find in their contract there's always that and any other stuff as directed by the municipality. They have like a catch-all, so.
Yeah, but let's make sure we don't, they work pretty hard for us on the planning.
Oh yeah, no, we're not gonna ask them to like draw up any plans for us, but just to provide like some general feedback or guidance from the county's perspective, like I'm sure they wanted.
Make them feel honored to be invited to participate.
That was more what I was thinking.
I think it would actually.
If Tim was going to go to the mattresses saying he didn't want to be involved, come hell or high water, I think we would say, you don't need to.
We
But
don't know if he's on a short leash.
yeah.
I also would never want them to feel like slighted, like we ignored them completely and didn't ask, because now I'd like to at least give them the opportunity.
Yeah. And I guess the kind of the other component of it was like our brother and sister boards and commissions, and kind of they could, like, if they were on their own, they could dominate that entire stakeholder list, which it seemed to me that the point of the stakeholder list was to get like community voices in. And so I kind of thought that maybe we as the study group, since we have a limited capacity for what Simone Collins can do, is if we, the study group, would have roundtables with those from commission to commission, and to try to create like a transmission line through that. And then we have kind of, we're including the commissions in it, while also making sure that we're holding space for the community groups. I obviously don't want to overcommit the members of this study committee to so much additional stuff than what you signed up for, but that to me seemed like one idea to try to kind of square the circle in terms of making sure that we're having an inclusive process. So I don't know if folks have strong feelings one way or another on that, but I wanted to flag that as well.
Yeah, I would be supportive of that idea just because I think there's some valuable information gathering that can come out of that. And again, Simone Collins can't hit all of the groups, but if we kind of spread the resources a little bit, it might be a good way to go about it.
Similar to Montgomery County Planning Commission, you don't want to ignore somebody that wants to be saying something or wants to have some input. I think it's a worthwhile approach. Again, from my view, I've seen things where the borough works forever on getting the project just about in order, and then people say, wait a minute, you're doing what? You didn't know that. And things fall apart. And that would be no reason for us to want to waste our time. So the more people we can get and different groups involved in the discussion and potential planning, the better off we're going to be.
You're talking about like Shade Tree Commission, Planning Commission, EAC.
Yes.
So luckily, like we do have members up on the committee from like Shade Tree, Parks and Rec, and Planning.
Yeah.
But I don't think we have anybody from EAC, correct?
We don't have anyone from EAC, and we don't have anyone, and I included Harb on here where there's a ton of crossover, and I don't know necessarily what the interest would be, but considering that Station Circle's part of the thing, I figured that Harb might also have at least some interest, so I had put them on like the short list of relevant.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't need to be like separate kind of things. We have a round table where there's some crossover, because again, like, I'm sure not every member of every single, maybe they all will want to be included, but I figured they could.
I was thinking if maybe it'd be possible to work through some of our liaisons to like each of these boards and commissions to go to their respective boards and say, hey, we're in the middle of the planning process. Is there any like comments or feedback we can provide to the park plan committee on, or maybe have Simone Collins work on that with each, I don't know.
I didn't want to over stress Simone Collins because they've got like a ton of groups, and I get like when I was thinking about it, man, I was like, I remember, when I was on planning commission, I would provide like a regular update, but planning commission we had a bunch of stuff on every agenda. I don't know how every other commission kind of operates. So it seemed like if it was like, if they were going to have like kind of be able to provide input, I didn't know if that was going to be met just through kind of like the update at the beginning of the meeting type of like forum. I guess was the way I was thinking about that in my head. But it can work any way we want it to work, right?
Yeah. So I'm sorry, go on, Jean.
As I'm looking at this list, it's like kind of a group is forming in my head of that fit together, like the Shade Tree Commission, the EAC, Lower Merion Conservancy, which I think we actually left off this list. So I wonder, I don't know if that should be its own group or if that should be like a key person group. I don't know what that looks like, but they seem to have kind of connection there. They should be talking to each other, perhaps.
I think it also there's also a factor of what are the roles that those different kind of events serve, right? So the way, and this may not be the right way to think about it, but the way I had been thinking about it was kind of like the community groups, they intersect directly with Simone Collins because they're providing value statements on the front end that Simone Collins uses to kind of help produce a draft. And then the boroughs, like commissions and things of that nature, are like, at their core, they're like review and recommendation entities. And so I guess what I was thinking was like, they are providing input directly to us because we are kind of the initial reviewing entity, and they're providing values that are going to help us better review the things that are coming out of Simone Collins. And so that was kind of like the way that I had seen those like transmission processes work in practice, but it may not actually work that way. Just in terms of defining that, why I had kind of like had the rationale laying it out in that way.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And maybe Simone Collins can provide a little bit more direction as well.
That's what I think. Yeah. I think if we present this to them and they can give some input, they have a lot more expertise in how these interviews and what types of groups should be included to come out with the best plan. I mean, at the end of the day, we really want them to hear from the right people to help them build this plan. We actually have to, though, also now, John, does anybody have any more comments about this? Because the other area that we need to consider or start talking about at a very high level are the overall themes that we would like them to consider for the community survey, which in some ways is even more important because it's going to include far more people from the community to get their input on the direction they want their community parks to go. So I think we need to consider what types of topic areas do we want Simone Collins to cover in this survey.
I certainly think it would be helpful if we get kind of like a programmatic inventory of the way that folks have seen the park used in their lifespans. Because I assume we're going to get people that have lived here for a really long time, some who are new, and I think that if they list kind of the things that stand out in their mind, it does two things. One, we get like a good inventory of like all of the different ways that a space is used. So Simone Collins can think about like making sure that the space remains flexible for all of those things. But it also kind of is something of an indicator of the things that really stood out in their mind in terms of like, oh, that thing made an impact. The way that this space was used made an impact. And like so much of surveys I see are just kind of people like ranking things 1 to 5. And I think like we have an opportunity here if we like disperse this really widely to like be able to kind of tap into like some deep institutional knowledge that will help us kind of get like what I think would be really valuable, something I'm calling it.
I also think going back to member surveys from my past, it's sometimes interesting to ask people what they like. I'm trying to think how you would do this. Simone Collins can help. What they know of what we offer now in these parks. And do they use, what of them do they use? And if they've never used the parks, why not? And it could be something simple, but I think it's also important to know why people don't access our parks. It's interesting. It would be interesting to find out, you know, what kinds of activities they're involved in and where they go for those activities. Like, what if we find that people are part of, I don't know, some baseball association, and they do it in some other area because they didn't know, which would be very surprising, that Narberth has these leagues that run. I think it's important because if you just focus on those who are using the park, you're just going to get how they use it. And part of what I think would be really valuable is to find out why people don't use our parks, what they don't know about what we do, and what would potentially bring them or make them want to use the parks.
I think that was tying into something I was thinking too, is there's all this value in institutional knowledge and how it's been used in the past. And I think what you're saying, Rebecca, is true, is this could actually be an opportunity to find out what people think is missing from our parks. I mean, we piloted the bike lanes. I mean, we talked about connectivity between the different open spaces. Very briefly, they talked about maybe even opening up the creek and having some wild plantings and natural, domestic plantings. And, there's so many opportunities for things that might be missing from the parks that people might enjoy that, we haven't thought of, even the Simone Collins hasn't thought of.
Yeah.
A good think about like asking them about, not in Narberth, but what are spaces that they were
Yeah,
really.
where else do they go? Yeah.
Which is actually funny because when I was talking to Dave Brower a couple weeks ago, he kind of naturally went into, he flagged something that really stood out in his mind about a completely different park space. And he said you should look into something like that for, XYZ.
I think that's also helpful to ask those questions because we have a whole new park space over at Elmwood that we didn't have before. I think my guess is, there's, people that have the institutional knowledge and when they talk about what they've used the parks for, it's all going to be about center of town here in Narberth Park. But Elmwood may provide, hopefully does, some other options that other folks thought might be worthwhile. And
also we could learn, it could help Borough Council as they consider what to do with Sabine. If a lot of different interests come in and, we run out of space with the parks we have, it could make you think about what to do in that undeveloped area right now.
Good point.
So that was really the only area. I really think it's important to find out who uses it, who doesn't, and why they don't, or where they go for their recreation. Jean, what would you want? I think the bike thing is really interesting, and the whole idea of connectivity across Narberth in some way, whether it's better ways of being able to walk around the borough, or at least park to park. How to institute more from a bike friendly perspective. So when you think about that, what would you like to gather from this survey?
Well, a lot of what we talked about, we did talk about that extensively during the site tour in terms of the paths, the connectivity, how people get to places and things like that, and what's missing right now and should be there or could be there.
I think connectivity is a big theme.
Yeah.
And that's why we were talking about Thomas Wynn. It's because we wanted to make sure all these spaces are connected, easy to get to, and from the outside, community, coming in from Lower Merion side too, because they're on the periphery. So connectivity is a huge part of it.
Mm-hmm. And they also asked about the Lower Merion Narberth active transportation plan, and we had a survey. We had 1,800 responses across Lower Merion and Narberth. So I did send that along to Simone and Collins because there's some useful data there, and they also had a pedestrian and bicycle map where the respondents gave specific feedback on intersection concerns. So that's also important to know. So I think they'll take that information as well, and I'm sure they'll maybe gather some additional feedback from. They wanted that because they didn't want to do a lot of overlap or redundant information. But I think there's something more that we can gather from the survey that's more specific to the parks.
Yeah,
I think I also want to clarify with them, in terms of the survey, because certain planning work has already been done on Town Square Station Circle. So are they envisioning that the survey just covers the two park spaces? Does it include that as well? If it includes Town Square Station Circle, is that in a separate section? How does that get handled? I think we'll probably want to clarify with them just on that logistical.
Was there a survey done for Station
I was about to ask that.
There was a giant public envisioning session took
Right.
place in the big room on at least one occasion. One that sticks out in my mind where there were 100 people maybe that participated and actually drew plans, which was very cool.
I was there.
You were there,
Yeah.
okay, so you remember, and that was the outreach effort.
Okay, but there was no survey for it.
To a broader
No.
audience.
That was the survey.
Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah, it does seem like we should include Station Circle as part of the survey.
So then I would say, then, and I'm sure they'll do this regardless, but, there should be some sort of indication when you're taking it that you're not just kind of like, right, the headspace that you take a survey in is gonna dictate what sorts of feedback you're providing, and so like, they'll just wanna frame it up in a way that like, okay, maybe a transition to a different section, however it is, just so that folks
Or-
taking it know.
Frame it that considers the existing like plan that they had developed, or I don't know if they wanna say, hey, we've done X, Y, and Z already, like, what do you think of this, or do you have any new ideas, like, they'll somehow, I guess, wordsmith it and make it work for that space.
That is a good point, though, in terms of, because they're so different in terms of how they function. And also the audience is going to be different too. You're including the business community with the Station Circle, the demographics are different. So it's something to think about.
And things have changed. I mean, we've had a pandemic since we did that. And
Yeah.
parking at the state store may have become much, much more important. Or maybe it's become less important. At the time we did that, the ethos was that let's get the cars out of there. It's just a great place to break the plastic lenses on your tail lights as you do battle for a parking space. Let's get the cars out of there and make it into a people space. That's my personal preference. But that opinion, that public opinion may have changed in the several years that have elapsed. So
It would be good to validate that.
validating it, yeah, and also be aware that the design part of that exercise never really reached a concrete conclusion. It really didn't. Attention was diverted by the idea of a tunnel across under the tracks, which never got funded and would have been problematic anyway, in my opinion. But that sucked the air out of the Station Circle undertaking pretty much. I think there was much more interest in doing that.
I will say, I really saw the value of having Simone Collins work on this project just because we were able to spend a lot of time talking about Narberth Park and the Elm Grove Park. Do you guys know what the name change?
Elmwood.
And so, because they already had that background knowledge at Station Square, and
Yeah,
so we used that time more wisely.
they heard most of the back and forth on that.
Is there anything else, any large area of, that we want to include in the survey? I'm sure they probably have done so many of these that even with the little bit of direction that we give them, they'll be able to send us a good suggestion. So what I have for the public survey is the overall, if you use the park, how do you use it? What do you, if you don't, what do you know is offered by Narberth in our park system? Where do you go for your recreational activities? How do you currently get around Narberth? And clarification about the planning work that's been done on Station Circle. How do they anticipate including that into the survey and in a way to check what's already been thought about, and does it still ring true given what we've gone through in the last couple of years? Anything else?
Might want to ask people if they even know what the tentative broad plans were in line there for Station Circle, give a sense of, if they really were aware. I mean, again, I go back to sometimes things happen and folks kind of say, geez, we didn't know that. And it was just pointed out, never got to a conclusion, so I wonder how much people know. I know it's all out there, you can go online, the borough puts stuff up, I mean, it's there, but not everybody does that.
Well, going online and seeing a picture from, what was it, 2022, something like that, doesn't tell you the genesis of the plan that you're looking at, doesn't explain it. So I'm not sure that would be very valuable, just looking at a drawing that's all yellow around the edges anyway.
And I'm not saying they should include that, I'm just wondering if people, when you say, how do you, I'm not sure how you bring in the Station Circle, I guess. You want to ask them what they know about the plans or what the discussions, it doesn't matter. But
It's maybe validating the goals that were derived from the work that was done that helped inform the design of Station Circle. So do those themes, do those goals still resonate with the people? So you don't necessarily even have to ask them whether they knew what was going on with Station Circle. I didn't know anything about it. Not that I'm obviously, since I didn't know about Horizons, I'm not all that in the know, but I would I think we would all know about where that area is. And if you were to if we want to try to validate what was the major themes or the major goals of what was done, I think that's possible in a survey. Okay. Anything else?
Rebecca, do you know if Simone Collins is sending the study committee the survey draft
yes,
prior?
I asked them that. Yes.
Absolutely. Yes.
I mean, so that we'll have, plenty of time to review it and digest it.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll send some write-up of what we've discussed tonight with them and talk about what the next steps will be, because it's the public survey, it's the recommendation of the interviews. I'm sure they'll come back with some input about those, share that with the committee in the interim, because we do want to keep this moving forward. And just hopefully by the time we meet again in May, we'll have all of that knocked out in terms of who those interviews will be with, what the stakeholder groups will be, and at least a rough draft of what this survey should look like. I don't have the timeline in front of me. Alan, can you maybe put that up for a moment? We can just take a look.
No, I got kicked out of Zoom. My lost internet by the computer. Yeah.
So anyway, we're going to get feedback. They'll come up with something from that, and nothing will be done without this group looking at it and approving it.
Looks like online public survey would begin sometime
In May.
in early May.
Good.
I don't have a specific date, but there is a public meeting set for May 8th, and then online public survey is noted thereafter. So I would assume sometime in May 8 to 15, somewhere in there. So we should hopefully get a draft, their suggestions, and then we can look at it, review it, and respond to it.
Yeah. So we'll be doing a lot of back and forth with the group over the next few weeks. I'm sure there'll be a lot of interest in what that survey looks like, not only what it looks like, but also mapping out how we're going to make sure that as many people in Narberth and the close proximity of it are aware of the survey and have access to the survey so they can be included in it.
Looking at the schedule, so the online public survey is in May. I just want to make sure that that survey would be ready by Narberth Day, because I think that's going to be like a really good opportunity to get some good
Then we'll
survey
put-
results.
Yeah, we'll put that as a priority then.
think
Again,
that's-
they've done so many of them that once we give them the feedback that we have, I would be surprised if it takes them more than a couple of days to send us the first draft. So we've got a good amount of time since we're only at the 10th of April now.
Yeah, and speaking of Narberth Day, I just went through the calendar, and there's, obviously the concert series, Concert in the Park, obviously 4th of July, Music and Arts Festival. So there's like a number of things where if we just get a stack of flyers and then maybe like a little, not a banner, but like a poster, happy to like get a little table.
With the link, with the little URL, that little URL link that people can just actually put it, take it right on their phone.
Yeah, and then that way, like, and I'm happy to sit there with whoever else wants to at some of these things. People can come over, grab the flyers, and then that way we're like right at a population center where there's going to be theoretically a bunch of people. They can come over
Yeah.
at their leisure.
Every one of them a park user.
Every one of them, exactly.
That's right. No one can say from that group they don't use the park. All right. Well, it's almost 8. Anything else that anyone wants to add to this? If not, we
I
are
want
going.
informational question. The May 8th, that's just this meeting, right? That's not like a separate event. That's just a study committee meeting that Simone Collins is going to be at, or is that a
Going
Public meetings.
forward.
it's like full on? Okay.
It's supposed to be, I guess, like an open house.
Okay.
I feel
So
like that's soon.
that's pretty soon.
That's why I was asking them, like, well,
Yeah, I think we talked about that when they were here. When they met with us at the last meeting, we talked about that being like that type of a first public meeting, that it would coincide with when our meeting would normally take place anyway.
Okay, I didn't take notes on that one, so I couldn't exactly remember. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna, I'm sorry. Can I ask him about public meetings? I don't know if we've had many of them and how many people show up, but I think we're gonna all, as committee members, have to make sure that our friends and family are aware of this in our neighborhoods to show up, because I think it would be really important to get as many people as we can to these meetings. There's only 2 of them, if I remember correctly.
Well, it's probably going to be difficult to get, if that May 8th meeting is meant to be like a kind of like open house town hall, it may be difficult to get a bunch of people at that meeting. It's less than a month away.
Yeah.
the other thought I had about that first meeting is, I feel like it's always, you get the best kind of feedback when you have an informed audience. So it's really helpful when the firm kind of provides all of that information on it. And I know they're planning to do something like that, but I just want to make sure that they have enough time to prepare, good presentation. So that-
I was almost thinking, could they do it in June? Give more time.
It would have to be
That's-
early June.
Yeah.
That's a tough one though, because there's a lot of graduations. If when
Do you know
you
when
start
you could-
getting towards the end of May into June, you've got high school, college, all those graduations start taking place.
Second Wednesday of June. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we just ask them what they were thinking in terms of like how to conduct that?
Yeah.
And then maybe that answers it, and if not, we can troubleshoot.
Yes. I think that makes good sense. All right, all. So it's 7:54, and if there's no other thoughts about this, we can adjourn until the public meeting. But be sure to be checking your email because we are going to probably have a lot of documents going back and forth in preparation for the survey and for the public meeting and finalizing this list of key stakeholders. So this will be a busy month.
Oh, we do also have our meeting on April 30th. So we do have a meeting between now and the public meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hopefully, though, I'm hoping that by that April 30th, we're going to have a lot of this buttoned down, because then you only have 8 days.
Yeah, I think it would be good if they could at least maybe prepare the draft of the survey by April 30th, and then we can provide feedback on that, and then they can take that and then finalize it, and then we can give it out at our birthday on May 4th, hopefully. That would be a good target to hit.
All right, all.
Any responses, any feedback we have to all those multiple emails and so on, they'll be subject to disclosure under any sunset, or sun.
Yeah.
Just being mindful, that's the situation.
Yeah, please don't deliberate through email. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn,
Yep, 7:56.
all in favor?
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Rebecca.